So thank you, everyone. We are very excited to have you at this meeting, the National Solidarity meeting. Oh, just a minute. Okay, sorry, we just went live. So Steph, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Right, why don't you go?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Price, and I want to welcome you to the National Solidarity meeting for Alabama Amazon workers. I am a speech language pathologist. I work in the Washington Public Schools. I am a member of the Black Lives Matter at School Steering Committee and also a leader in National Educators United. And I saw somebody drop in the chat that they were from OKC, so I just want to give a shout out. Boomer Sooner. I'm originally from Norman, so it's good to see you here. This meeting is incredibly important. The Amazon workers are fighting for dignity, and we're going to frame that a little bit here in a second. But I just want to thank you again for being here. I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, who is my co-host, and she's going to go over some housekeeping, and then we're going to frame this meeting, talk about our co-sponsors, and get to work. So Elizabeth?
Thank you, Steph. I'm very excited as well for everyone who is joining us. I think this is an incredibly important meeting and incredibly important struggle in Bessemer, at the Amazon facility. I'm Elizabeth Lawlish. I'm a registered nurse. I'm in Chicago. I am a steward with National Nurses United. I'm also the co-chair for the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America labor branch and a member of the Tempest Collective. As Steph said, just a couple of housekeeping things. Make sure that people are muted. We're going to keep you muted, and that people should only unmute themselves when they're called on. We're going to have a discussion, so just so you know that. Otherwise, and if people speak or interrupt out of turn and don't respect the chairs, they will be removed from the meeting. So just so people know that, I'm sure everybody's been on a lot of Zooms lately. The other thing is that we are saying welcome to all the people on the live stream, and that the talk will be live streamed, but we'll be closing it once the discussion starts. So if you want to hop onto this discussion, we can put that into the chat. It's a B-link. It's bit.link /BAmazon_solidarity. I'll put it in the chat so you can see it. And I'll say that a couple more times so people who want to join us for the discussion can do that. So, okay. And then Steph is going to go over our co-sponsors.
Absolutely. So I want to thank all of the co-sponsors for this amazing solidarity panel: the Committee to Stop Police Terror and End Systemic Racism, Seattle, CUNY Adjunct Project, DC37 Progressives, DSA AfroSocialist and Socialists of Color Caucus, DSA Santa Cruz, Haymarket Books, Labor for Palestine, Left Voice, Internationalism from Below, National Educators United, New Politics, NYC-DSA Immigrant Justice Working Group, NYC-DSA Racial Justice Working Group, Rank and File Action CUNY, Rank and File Action UC, Science for the People, Seattle Education Association, Social Equity Educators, Southern Labor Studies Association, Support Amazon Workers, the Tempest Collective, Unite All Workers for Democracy, and Workers Assembly Against Racism. And I just feel it is important to name each of these co-sponsors and thank them for their solidarity in this fight for the Amazon workers. To kind of frame our meeting and really ground us in why we're here and this struggle that the Amazon workers in Bessemer are going through right now, all eyes are on Amazon workers. There are 5,800 workers, 80% Black, mostly Black women, who are voting to form a union within the retail, wholesale, and department store union. And voting for this will end on the 29th of this month. And what they are fighting for is better job security, higher pay, shorter work shifts, a slower work pace, longer and more breaks, a safer work environment, better COVID-19 health and safety protocols, and the ability to establish grievance procedures. And that probably sounds familiar to so many of you. Many of you are in unions. You know that being part of a union means that the companies you work for have less of a chance of getting away with exploiting your labor, right? This is about dignity. This is about workers' rights. This is about getting what we need for our health and safety and compensation from our employers. And we know that these billionaires aren't making money by themselves. The workers are the reason why they have the money that they have. It is about the labor. And it is incredibly significant because this is a continuation of the Black Lives Matter movement. We saw an uprising for Black lives over the summer. We have seen just this increase and this arc of fighting back, of standing up against anti-Blackness, against racism. We see Black workers and Black people in the streets who are fighting for dignity and respect. We saw it with the protests and the march for Black lives of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many more. This summer, we saw it with the city waste workers in New Orleans who were Black sanitation workers demanding that they be treated with equity, with respect for the job that they were doing. And some of their asks were the same as what these Amazon workers are fighting for respect, for a better wage, for shorter shifts, for fair compensation, right? This is not, they are not alone in this fight. This is something that Black folks have been fighting for such a long time. And this really is just a continuation of that. It is standing up and saying, we demand what we deserve, and we are not going to take less. And particularly in a place like Alabama in the South, which, you know, our speakers will talk more about that, but just the importance of having a union to support these workers so that they are being treated more equitably, so that they have fair working conditions in a place in the South where racism has that historical grip on particularly Black and brown folks, right? So this is just an incredibly important struggle. And I want to, again, just say that I thank you all for being here to stand in solidarity. I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, who's going to talk a little bit more about that drive to unionize and the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, Steph has said it so incredibly well. I just really want to add something about the Amazon workers are essential workers. And so their fight is very close to my heart in the sense of I'm a nurse, and knowing what it's been like to actually during this pandemic and during the economic crisis, that essential workers who are mainly people of color and women have been able, actually the people who have been able to hold everything together without the recognition that we really deserve. And I think this will come out over the coming days and months and years as we start to get vaccinated and hopefully this COVID pandemic begins to subside. But the reality is that a union is the thing that has protected workers during the pandemic, essential workers, and fighting back. And so I stand, as we do in this solidarity meeting, 100% and more with the Bessemer Amazon workers fighting for what they're fighting for, because it is about dignity and it's about saving their lives. So I'll just stop with that. And then we really want to go into, we have a very exciting panel. Just so people know, I will be introducing our panelists, and then we will be going into some solidarity statements. We have a couple of those that Steph will introduce of people who are going to be on the call and talking about why they also stand with this unionizing drive and why it's so critically important for us in the labor movement today in the US. So I'll start out with introducing our speakers, our panel. We unfortunately weren't able to get an Amazon worker from Bessemer. We had tried. We've been trying for about a month. And we thought we could get one, but the union drive has really exploded into the national spotlight and has been swamped with requests. So we wanted to give people a sense of what it's like. So we have a video clip from Democracy Now! Of one of the key workers who's been speaking in the media. Her name is Jessica Bates, and she'll be talking about the working conditions and also why they're fighting for a union.
Talk about why you're organizing. What are the conditions in the plant?
Well, the reason why we're organizing is because we need an even playing field. Some of the conditions that are in there are being ignored by human resources, long work hours with only 2 breaks. Long walks upstairs and downstairs. We have plenty of elevators in the building, but they're only used for merchandise. You can put the merchandise on the elevators, but we have to turn around, send it upstairs and go to the back halls, just like at a hotel, and take the stairs up to the floor that we're taking it to. So there are a lot of health issues. Another thing is with the COVID-19, they told us that they were advise us of those who have it or if we work near them. So they haven't done well with that. So it's a lot of excessive working. It's just like working out. You have intense workout for 9 hours, but you only get 2-hour breaks within a 10-hour span. So we want to be heard. We want to be treated like people and not ignored when we have issues. People are getting fired without having their opportunity to speak their side.
Talk about what.
So that gives you a sense of what it's like, and we want to move into then, and people should raise that in the discussion. We do want to move into our first speaker that people can see. I'll introduce our 3 other panelists, Luis Feliz Leon. He's a journalist and organizer, and he'll be speaking on behalf of the DSA AfroSocialist and Socialists of Color Caucus. Jason Corbelius and AC Potiti, I hope I have that right. Yeah, let me know. They're the co-chairs of the Birmingham DSA chapter, and they'll be talking about on-the-ground organizing that they have been doing with the Bessemer workers. And then Michael Goldfield, political scientist, labor activist, and author of The Southern Key, Class, Race, and Radicalism in the 1930s and 40s. So we're going to move into Luis. He's a journalist and organizer, and he's been writing, featured in The Nation, The New Republic, The American Prospect, Jacobin Magazine, and elsewhere. He's a staff writer and organizer at Labor Notes, hailing from the sun-drenched cerulean shores of the Caribbean, the birthplace of the modern world by some accounts. He brings a strong sense of place and history to the movement, journalism, and organizing. Thank you for being with us, Luis.
Thanks for having me. So I, as folks may know, I've been in Alabama reporting on the ground on the historic unionization election that would represent nearly 6,000 majority Black workers in one of the largest facilities that Amazon has in the United States. So folks may be familiar that there was a previous attempt at organizing a smaller bargaining unit of Amazon technicians in Middleton, Delaware. That election was lost with the vote tallies 21 split no, 6 voting yes. This organizing drive, unlike the one in Delaware and others that we've seen bubble up, we've seen Amazonians United in Chicago, in New York, in California also take shop floor actions. But unlike those efforts, it hasn't really garnered the international attention that Amazon has, that this drive to organize Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. One is that Amazon is the GM of the 21st century. For all the hype that Amazon repeats about being, you know, a 21st century company, for all the talk we hear about the cloud, they're human beings laboring in factories, just like they labored in the 20th century. So that's what we're talking about, right? So we're talking about workers laboring in dismal working conditions and fighting to have workers' control of the shop floor. So as you heard at the outset, many of the demands that the workers are making at the Bessemer plant center on dignity. So as we all know, workers at GM, workers in the 70s at Ford and Chrysler, they were also struggling against line speeds, right? They were struggling and proclaiming that they were human beings, that they weren't appendages of a machine. And you hear the same talk at Bessemer, right? So that's why this is critical, because here we have a continuation of a centuries-long worker struggle. And this worker struggle that we're talking about is not like any other worker struggle. It's a worker struggle to build a multiracial working class movement, right? So I spoke to workers recently in Spain, Venezuelan workers. I've learned from the workers that I spoke to in Spain that in the facility, the workers there are from Colombia, from Guatemala, from Ecuador. In Germany, the workers are from Turkey. The workers are from Iraq. So we're talking about organizing along Amazon's global supply chain. So the spark that has ignited in Bessemer has global ramifications for a renewal not only of the labor movement in the United States, but a global and international workers movement. That being said, Amazon has not, has met this organizing challenge with stiff resistance. They have gone as far as to change the traffic lights in Bessemer in order to prevent organizers from talking to workers as they exit the Bessemer plant. They have hired anti-union consultants, basically holding the workers hostage in captive audience meetings and feeding them misinformation. So as you all know, Alabama is a right-to-work state, which means that workers get to free ride while still enjoying the benefits of a collective bargaining agreement and representation by the union. So they don't have to pay dues in Alabama. But Amazon has lied, and they set up a website called Do It Without Dues to lie to the workers in order to beat back the unionizing drive. So since the consultants have left, I was just down in Alabama, and I spoke to workers at a local gas station who told me, look, I voted no, but now I want to change my vote because, I did my research, I've talked to coworkers, and I see the benefits of a union. So this is going to be a very close election. RWDSU is well equipped to lead the fight. So one of the things that people sometimes leave out when they talk about organizing the South is that, yes, there have been failures. The history of the left is the history of failures, but RDSU has been successful at winning contracts. So in 2019, they won a contract to represent Black women dialysis workers in Mobile, Alabama, against a multinational based out of Germany called Fresenius Medical. In 2012, they won a union election in Roosevelt, Alabama, to represent 1,200 workers at Pilgrim's Pride, the U.S. poultry division of the Brazilian beef and poultry giant, JBS. So you have a union here that has muscled up through a strong ground game and brings that expertise to this fight against a Goliath like Amazon. Last but not least, it's also important to mention the Southern Workers Assembly in South Carolina. The Charleston Five in 2000 went up against basically the state, they were charged with felonies for going on strike. And there was a wave of international solidarity with Spanish workers refusing to accept, freight in Spanish ports. So right now, what we are facing is a similar moment, and the international solidarity is definitely there. On March 22nd, Italian workers are going to go on strike. These Italian workers this is going to include workers that are both organized through Amazon and workers that are subcontractors. So we all know that over the past decades, one of the weapons that has been used against labor has been demystifying who is an employee, who represents who. So you see workers working at the Marriott with Marriott, uniforms, but Marriott doesn't actually employ them. It's some third-party contractor. We saw that with the airport campaign. So this election is historic, and we must go into it, of course, with no illusions. So lastly, I would say this: the history of the left has been an onslaught of defeats, and yet the struggle to reorganize society, to meet human needs and desires persists. It carries on not because of any delusional, psychologically charged mindfuck, but because workers recognize that the struggle is long and arduous and victory hard to come by. But workers have demonstrated this key insight time and time again in struggle, shown the reserves of fight in them won't be easily depleted, as today's loss prepares the ground for tomorrow's victory. Onward they go, pining, imagining, building, organizing towards that elusive rendezvous with victory, which once attained will be all the more satisfying for the rough terrains the workers' movement has had to traverse to cull the living flower from the wretched earth of their dispossession. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis. That was beautiful. So, and thank you for setting up the what's going on in Alabama. Our next speakers are Jason Kobilius and AC Potiti, co-chairs of the Birmingham DSA chapter. I know they've been working very hard on the ground. I think they had an event yesterday that they participated in with Black Lives Matter in Birmingham in support of the Bessemer Amazon workers. So thank you very much for joining us, Jason and AC.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Louise, for your words. Really appreciate it. It's good hearing you speak, Louise. AC is, just correction, he's, I don't want to dock him, but he's our communications officer, and I'm a co-chair, but we're all on the steering committee. We all have equal say. But you'll hear AC speak after me. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. So Birmingham DSA is part of a coalition of 6 local organizations that are working to organize our community in support of Amazon. Those other organizations are Black Lives Matter Birmingham, Our Revolution Birmingham, Alabama Working Families Party, Sweet Alabama, and Greater Birmingham Ministries. And really what we're trying to do here is, obviously the union, RWDSU, really wants to handle direct communication with workers, whether that be posting up outside the warehouse with field organizers, to talk to workers as they're starting or ending their shifts, calling workers to discuss more in depth the benefits of joining a union, et cetera. Really what RWDSU has asked us to do is to garner community support, make it more visible, bring it out there so that the workers know that people where they live in Birmingham, in Bessemer, in Hoover, in Tuscaloosa, in Hueytown, all over the greater Birmingham area, that these people support them in their fight and their desire for a union. To that end, we've done a number of things to make that support more visible, to bring that support out. I'll talk about a few and then I'll pass the mic over to AC. One thing that we've been doing is canvassing. There's been canvassing that was going on last week. There's canvassing that's going on this week and next week as well, and possibly in the middle of the week. We've basically been going to every corner where we've been told workers live, whether it's Birmingham last week or Bessemer yesterday. or smaller communities like Midfield or Fairfield, and just talking with community members, asking them if they'd like to sign a petition that will show to the workers to show that their community members support them, asking them if they like yard signs or window signs in their yard that workers can see while they're driving to and from work or to Walmart, to a gas station. We also asked them if they would like to take a picture that we'll post on a social media account that all the workers can see, picture with a yard sign, again, to show the workers that support them, or if they'd like to take a video, a 30-second video message just expressing their support to the workers for the union drive that we would post on social media. So that's really been the goal of canvassing, and from a lot of the recaps that I'm hearing from last week and this week, it's been going really well. So we're going to keep doing it all over the area. Another thing that we've been doing is scheduling people for solidarity shifts. Basically, there's shifts where anybody in our community, local organizers, just local community members, can sign up in a shift to stand in solidarity and next to the field organizers for RWDSU as they're posting up outside the warehouse. You know, those field organizers are basically out there sunrise to sunset, and we just want to kind of support them, have their backs, just be an extra set of eyes and ears, and just show RWDSU and show the workers as they're coming in from the warehouse that, again, we support them. And the last thing that I'll speak on before I give the mic over to AC is we have a design and social media team that we've organized. One of our chapter members is leading it, but other members of the social media and design team are a lot of members from Chicago DSA, as well as one from Lehigh Valley. I always mispronounce that. It's in Pennsylvania. Lehigh Valley, Lehighh. I never know how to pronounce it. But they have, they're setting up social media accounts where pictures and video and petition signatures will all be publicly posted for the workers to see that we're collecting from canvassing. But if you, from whatever part of the country or the globe you're from, would like to submit pictures or video, we are more than happy to receive it and look over it and post it online. I will post an email address you can send that to, and we would greatly appreciate that. I see it's Lehigh. Thank you, Henry. With that, I will turn it over to AC.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, y'all, my name is AC Poteet. Like Jason said, I'm the communications chair. Our other co-chair is a very good friend of mine, Nicole Watkins. She couldn't be here today. But yeah, Jason pretty much hit the nail on the head. And then I wanna go back to what Steph was saying about how this is really a synonymous fight with Black Lives Matter. And, you know, the Birmingham chapter especially is, you know, done a lot. We had an event yesterday. It was a lunch reception prior to the caravan around the Amazon facility that was to recognize the workers. Jennifer Bates, who we heard from in that video from Democracy Now! At the beginning of this event, she was present. Daryl Richardson. These are some of the main workers who put this together from the very beginning. But, you know, Jason spoke to that coalition of those 6 local organizations. So the reception was to recognize the workers in those organizations, but, you know, BLM Birmingham was one of those organizations, and they really put that together for the rest of us. So, you know, huge shout out to them. You know, and all the organizations that put this event together today. You know, Steph said it goes back to this past summer when the murder of George Floyd and everybody just saying enough is enough, and we ain't stopped since then. And, you know, locally, a lot going on in the Birmingham area. You know, we're here talking about the unionization efforts in Bessemer, but, you know, last summer when that popped off, 2 years prior, Hoover police, which Hoover and Bessemer right beside each other, both suburbs of Birmingham, right? Shot and killed an unarmed black man named E.J. Bradford. So around the time of the George Floyd protests, we had a group in Hoover protesting for a long time for justice for EJ, and it got heated. And I was concerned. I reached out to Left Voice, and we did an article there to bring awareness to that. So a lot going on down here. When the unionization efforts, first kicked off and we was kind of lost, I reached out to Bianca Cunningham from AfroSoc and Labor Notes, similar to Luis, and got a lot of good game from her. And we just been putting it into effect and then making it happen down here. We definitely appreciate all the national support. We created a space for national support. It's called the Amazon Community Organizing Team. It's a Slack space. I'm gonna link that in the chat for those who want to join. And another way to help, we said Our Revolution is one of those groups that we're working in coalition with, and they're acting as fiscal sponsor for a solidarity fund for everyone here on the ground. So I want to link that fundraiser in the chat too. If anybody wants to donate to that'd be the best way you can support. Other than that, follow us in the BCOT Slack, and we'll have calls for graphics and videos and anything else from there. So yeah, definitely appreciate it, y'all.
Thank you both so much. And we will be getting please add those things to the chat. We've been doing incredible work down there, and we'll continue. And we'll be getting to some next steps as well a little bit later after discussion. So appreciate all you've been doing. Our last speaker then on the panel is Michael Goldfield. He's a political scientist, labor activist, and author of The Southern Key, Class, Race, and Radicalism in the 1930s and 40s, an incredible book that recently came out. So we're happy to have you with us, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth. So I'd like to talk about two things. One is the history of unionization and particularly radical activity in the Bessemer and Birmingham area. And then secondly, why this struggle, I believe, that's going on in Bessemer at the Amazon facility is so important. So this history starts a long time ago. The area around Bessemer had coal mines, steel, mostly in Birmingham. Bessemer is only 12 miles, is a suburb, and it's in Jefferson County, only 12 miles from Birmingham. And a very radical local of the mine, mill, and smelter workers was in Bessemer itself. The state as a whole by the early 1950s was over 25% unionized. This part of Alabama was majority. Some people say 70 to 80% unionized. Even school teachers, washerwomen were organized. And to put that in perspective, there is no state in the United States today that's as highly unionized as Alabama was in the early 1950s. These unions, the mine workers union in Alabama were half African-American, half white. Mine mill locals were probably also about 50% African-American, and steel in Birmingham was majority African-American. So these unions were all civil rights oriented, and connected to them in some ways was the Sharecroppers Union in rural Alabama, which often engaged in gun battles with vigilantes and planners, and had lots of support activity from the Bessemer and Birmingham area. Also in Birmingham, 1,200 to 1,500 Black laundry workers were organized, supported by these workers. So mutual support from unions is very important. The radical part of the labor movement began to fall apart. A racist campaign was waged against the Bessemer iron ore local by the steel workers. They were eventually defeated. The FBI, the state all conspired against the union. But the activists in Mine Mill spread out and took over most of the NAACP chapters in the state, and the Bessemer chapter, much to the consternation of the national NAACP leadership, was a radical chapter throughout the 50s. People from Mine Mill were involved in the Montgomery bus boycott that Dr. King read in the Birmingham Civil Rights Movement, and some of them were even involved in helping SNCC, the Radical Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, in the 60s. Much of this history was initially suppressed, but as Birmingham elected Black officials, one of the left-wing leaders of the steelworkers who had been expelled during the McCarthy period was honored by the city, given the key to the city, Hosea Hudson, and he met with young activists at the time. So this tradition in this area, probably similar to what we've seen in West Virginia when the school teachers went on strike, many of them whose grandparents had been militant activists in the mine workers, harked back on this tradition in their statewide strike of teachers. And just one additional thing of note, Angela Davis, who most people have heard of, her parents, she was born in Birmingham, and her parents were activists in the 30s and 40s in radical organizations in Birmingham. So this struggle is important for a variety of reasons. First of all, as Luis mentioned, this part of the new economy, logistics, which includes warehouses, drivers, data centers, of which Amazon is the forefront in the United States and perhaps the world, is central to the emerging economy. Amazon has 1 million employees, roughly, 2/3 of whom, by my estimate, are in these warehouse facility and logistic facilities. And these workers have become far more important, as we recognized during the pandemic. The South is the least organized part of the country, the most politically backward part of the country, and it is today, and it would argue, as I do in my book, it's always been the key to the change in the country as a whole. From the legacy of slavery, the South has the lowest level of healthcare coverage, the largest percentage of whites who are birthers, who think Barack Obama was born someplace else in the United States, people who reject evolution, climate change, and much of these myths get fostered when people become isolated and don't have collective organization like unions. And union growth and social change, I argue, doesn't take place usually incrementally, but takes place in huge waves and upsurges. So if we look historically at the United States in the 1870s, led by railroad workers across the country, there were massive strikes and union growths. This took place during World War I, when a large percentage of the South was actually organized with labor shortages and production for the war. This took place in the 1930s and 1940s with massive upsurges, and the public sector, 1960s and 1970s, led by school teachers. So in this current period of union weakness and long-term decline, it's often sparks that lead to a new upsurge. And the organizing at Amazon has the potential, I would argue, to lead such an upsurge. So if Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama are successful at organizing, what do you think Amazon workers in Chicago and Southern California and other places think? If it can be done in Alabama, it can be done anywhere. So I think that's why the attention is there, and the heritage and tradition of union organizing and labor radicalism runs deep in Alabama. and the possibility for being renewed is fairly exciting for many of us.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to get all that context about really what has been going on in the South for many decades, and we greatly appreciate it. I think there's almost I read 1,000 workers have already contacted the union from Amazon about organizing. So, you know, we're certainly all eyes on this struggle. So thank you very much to all of our panelists. I'm now going to give it back over to Steph, and people, if they can hang in there with us, we have some solidarity statements that she will be going through from unions and different organizations. We've gotten many more than this. We selected out a few, and we will be sending these out to people who have registered for this, so you can get a sense of the breadth of the support. So, Steph?
Hey, I am working on sometimes my technology likes to fail me when I try to start my video again. So hopefully I'm back with you all. All right, so solidarity statements. We have 5 solidarity statements from some fantastic people who represent amazing organizations. The first is Carla Okauchi, who is a music educator from Fairfax County Public Schools, Virginia. She's a fine arts advocate, a union member, leader for racial and social justice, and a lead organizer with National Educators United and Virginia Educators United. She is also a dear friend, and I am happy that she is here with us today. Carla, take it away.
Thank you. And this struggle is close to my heart. I'm actually an Auburn University graduate from Alabama. But I'm here speaking on behalf of National Educators United. We are representing the voices of thousands of educators all around the country. We stand in solidarity with the approximately 5,800 Amazon warehouse workers in Bessemer, Alabama, who are currently voting up until March 29th on whether or not to join the Retail Wholesale Department Store Workers Union. As educators in a female-dominated profession, we are inspired by this predominantly Black woman-led union drive. While the unionization rate in Alabama is 8%, is well below the nation rate of 10.8%. We know there is a rich but not well-known history of union organizing in Alabama in the coal and iron ore industry, as mentioned. The role of Black labor leaders in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s add to the importance of why standing in solidarity with these workers is essential at this time. Just like there is a connection between labor organizing and the civil rights movement back then, today we see the obvious parallel with the reemergence of the Black Lives Matter movement in the streets after the police murder of George Floyd last year, with the fact these Alabama Amazon workers and the Be Amazon Worker Union Drive are leading arguably the most important union organizing drive in the country right now. We stand in solidarity with their demands that include, among other things, better job security, higher pay, shorter work shifts, slower work pace, longer and more breaks, safe work environments, better COVID-19 health and safety protocols, establishing grievance procedures. We know that Amazon and their executive chairman, Jeff Bezos, can afford to meet all of these demands and much more. Bezos is worth over $181 billion. Since the pandemic started, his personal wealth has grown by $70 billion. This increase alone could end hunger in America almost 3 times over. Bezos could pay a $105,000 bonus to every single Amazon worker and still be as rich as he was at the start of this pandemic. It is a sickening amount of wealth earned by the hyper exploitation of Amazon workers all around the world, as well as by other companies owned by Amazon, like Whole Foods. Instead of meeting the just demands of its workers, Amazon is spending almost $10,000 per day on one of the country's largest and most expensive anti-union law firms, Morgan Lewis, as well as 3 anti-union consultants, Russell Brown, Rebecca Smith, and Bill Monroe. We condemn the many anti-union tactics and policies of Amazon. These include sending mass texts to workers warning them to vote against the union, setting up anti-union websites, sponsoring Facebook ads urging workers to vote no, forcing workers into anti-union classes about the dangers of joining a union, photographing badges of workers who challenge company anti-union claims, attempting to compel the union vote to be held in person despite the safety concerns because of this pandemic, setting up USPS mailboxes near the entrance and exits of warehouses for workers to mail their ballots, putting anti-union posters in bathroom stalls and around the warehouse. We call on educators all around the country to join us in standing in solidarity with the Bessemer, Alabama Amazon workers. Talk to your coworkers, your families, and allies in the community about their struggle. Share their story and elevate their fight. We encourage not just educators, but workers in all industries around the country to attend and help build the solidarity actions on March 20th, International Day of Action, or help initiate an action in your locality if one isn't already planned. We encourage everyone to consider a donation to the Southern Workers Assembly Safe Jobs, Save Lives campaign so they can continue to support the Alabama Amazon workers and other workers throughout the South who want to organize a union. We are confident that a victory in Bessemer will not only inspire others, Amazon workers in the South, but around the US to organize a union. But this victory could also inspire an explosion of workers organizing in other industries as well. Thank you to every Amazon worker in Bessemer that is standing strong for your rights to unionize. We have your back now and in whatever future struggles unfold for Amazon workers in Bessemer and anywhere else in the world. Solidarity from National Educators United.
Thank you, Carla. I was listening to that and it honestly brought tears to my eyes. Just the fact that the ruling class will go to such lengths to prevent workers from having an equitable compensation, fair workloads. I mean, just all of it. Like it blows my mind. I am so angry that the wealthy are more concerned with amassing more wealth than they are with caring for the rest of us. It's just, oh God, it makes me so angry. Yeah, so thank you. Moving on, I want to introduce Lauren Wilkinson. Lauren Wilkinson is a member of the NYC-DSA Racial Justice Working Group's organizing committee and an active member of the Writers Guild of America East. Her debut novel, American Spy, was a Washington Post bestseller and an NAACP Image Award nominee. Lauren splits her time between New York and Los Angeles, where she works as a writer for television. Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much, Steph. Hi, everyone. So as Steph said, my name is Lauren, and I represent the NYC-DSA Racial Justice Working Group. I'm here today to express our strong support for you, the Amazon workers of Bessemer, in your efforts to unionize with the RWDSU. It's an honor to stand in solidarity with you at this historic moment. You might become the first union in an Amazon fulfillment center in the US, and to have taken your fight as far as you have already, despite Amazon's aggressive anti-union tactics, makes each and every one of you an inspiration for workers all around the globe. In the DSA, we believe that unions protect workers' rights, and we believe that workers are stronger together. And I also believe these things because I'm a proud member. I was one of the more than 1,700 television and film writers from the Writers Guild of America who signed the petition in support of your fight that was submitted to Amazon leadership last month. I work for Amazon under a union contract. I have my union to thank for good wages and benefits. I have them to thank for better working conditions and for the power to negotiate fairer pay, scheduling, and workplace policies. It's not lost on me that my union is predominantly white and wealthy. It's unjust for Amazon to be willing to sit at the bargaining table with us, with entertainment workers, while refusing to do so with a group of predominantly Black warehouse workers. You deserve the same respect and power in your workplace. Union, yes. Solidarity forever.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you being here and speaking in solidarity. Next, we have Bruce Jackson, who is an educator at Akikurosi Middle School, a member of Seattle Education Association, Washington State Ethnic Studies Now Board of Directors, and a member of the Social Equity Educators Steering Committee. Welcome, Bruce.
There it is. Hi. I just wrote a piece for the Bessemer workers, and here it goes. Is it time yet? We've been apart for so long, I don't remember what we looks like. Weren't we the ones who created the 40-hour work week? Didn't we create the weekend? Didn't we create time off? Isn't that our time? Weren't we the ones who decided children should be in school, not bleeding under a fresh coat of soot drilled loose from a black hole deep in a coal mine? Not using their tiny fingers to place that dingus into that thingamajig to make that whatchamacallit look more expensive on that thing we don't need? Didn't we reinvent childhood? That time for play, that time to create time. Didn't we create that time during that last time we were together? Isn't it time we created? Is it time yet? Isn't that what we're looking for now? As Amazon takes, leaving our bodies and our dignity broken by waste and greed, isn't it time we're asking for? Time to breathe, time to rest, time to take a moment to make a moment, time to see ourselves breathing, time to see ourselves living, to see ourselves growing. Look at us. Don't we look beautiful together? Taking control of our time, making time pass as we've shaped it, shaping our future in the process, creating the new we, and it is time. This is union. We are stronger together. We create more beautifully together. This is our time. We will create it together.
Thank you, Bruce. Beautiful, eloquent, as always. I appreciate your words and your solidarity and your presence in this space. Next, we have Gabriel Prahl. Gabriel is the past president of ILWU Local 52, president of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, co-chair of Puget Sound Million Workers March Movement, coast-wide executive co-chair of the African American Longshore Coalition, one of the vice presidents of the Washington State Labor Council, and one of the leaders of the Committee to Stop Police Terror and Systemic Racism. And I am wondering how Gabriel finds time to do all of these amazing things. So if there's some kind of like magic, let me know, because I could use it. All right, Gabriel, welcome.
Thank you very much for such gracious introduction. And I know we find time to do everything. It means that the work is never done and we must continue the struggle. I want to bring solidarity greetings to all. And I'll repeat again, my name is Gabriel Prahl. I want to thank you for inviting me to this event. This is a great historic moment for labor and Black workers, especially for those in the Bessemer, Alabama Amazon warehouse. It is time for us to organize for change. This is a long time coming, I should say. It's time to make what's wrong right. It's time to make a better future for workers in this country. But this struggle is not only will be a victory for the Amazon workers, but it also will be a victory for all of us in the labor movement. The victory that we need to make change, the victory that needs to put us back on track on where the labor movements need to stand. I want to share a famous quote from A. Philip Ramdos. At the banquet table of nature, there's no reserved seat. You get what you can take and you keep what you can hold. If you can't take anything, you won't get anything. And if you can't hold anything, you won't keep anything. You can take anything, you cannot take anything without organization. So it is important that us as an organization, as labor union, that we struggle together with these workers to empower them and strengthen them in their struggle. The essence of trade unionists is social uplift. The labor movement has been the haven for the dispossessed, the despised, the neglected, and the downtrodden and the poor. Power is the flower of organization. Those who deliver, salvation for our race, nation, or class must come from within. Freedom is never granted, it is won. Justice is never given, it's accepted. A community is democratic only when the humblest and the weakest person can enjoy the highest civil, economic, and social right that the biggest and most powerful possess. Brothers and sisters, we as a labor movement should be far front and center supporting these workers. The ILW has a famous motto: an injury to one is an injury to all. And this is a reality. You got 2020 workers was unemployed, workers suffer, struggling to pay their rent, no proper PPE. At the same time, you had the billionaires making billions of dollars. Where does the justice comes from? Where does all the work and stress and sacrifice of the workers paid off? It's long overdue. Let's strengthen those workers. Let's inspire them. But let's also make sure that they win this struggle, because they win is our win. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to be at this platform to share this short statements and saying that the struggle continue, and an injury to one is an injury to all. Let's stand firm. Let's stand strong. There's no back down, and let's make these workers know that when they walk, they're not walking alone. We'll walk with them, front and center, and we'll be there to make sure that their struggle is not in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Beautiful as always. And I just want to that last thing you said, a struggle for one is a struggle for all, that they're not alone, that we are in this together. That's what solidarity is. It's walking alongside the struggle of others, because we are all interconnected. So I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Next is Boyda Johnstone. Boyda is with the rank and file CUNY and is an assistant professor of English at Borough of Manhattan Community College within the CUNY system, and an organizer with Rank and File Action, which seeks to revitalize the CUNY workers and particularly the Professional Staff Congress Union through militant and democratic organizing. Boyda, welcome.
Thanks so much. And it's an understatement to say that I'm extremely humbled to be here today. As you mentioned, I'm an active member and delegate in the Professional Staff Congress Union representing 30,000 faculty and staff. I'll be reading from this statement, but I should mention that a resolution in support of the Amazon Union was passed unanimously at the PSC Delegate Assembly this last Thursday, and that union represents 30,000 faculty and staff. So, and this kind of unanimity unanimity never happens. Rafa fights for a fully funded, fully equitable, free, open, and decolonized people's university that supports the needs of students, staff, and faculty, advances racial and economic justice, and resists multiple oppressions harming our communities. Rafa wants to revitalize our union to refocus on the social good and issues of racial justice, and are inspired by the union drive in Alabama because it reminds us of the power unions have to fight for dignity and equity at the workplace. A brand new union has the power to inspire old unions what a union should look like. Over the last decade, Amazon has become one of the most powerful and profitable companies in the world. It has also become one of the most exploitative companies in the world. Amazon workers have been forced to undertake exhausting physical labor, leading to long-term injuries, fulfill unreasonable workplace quotas that have led some to urinate into bottles and take other inhumane measures, and suffer violations of privacy due to widespread tracking and surveillance. We also know that Amazon is engaged in a brutal union busting campaign, including changing traffic lights to prevent organizers from speaking with employees about the union. The power of a workforce lies in the power of its union, and the boss knows that. Already in Europe, many Amazon warehouse workers have unions to guarantee their health, safety, and job security. In America, Jeff Bezos has increased his wealth by $75 billion during a pandemic, while leaving American Amazon workers to rely on Medicaid and SNAP to make ends meet. This vote to unionize could also mark a sea change in labor policy in the United States and help us move toward progressive social policies such as Medicare for All or the Protect the Right to Organize Act, because the extent to which this country depends on Amazon became very clear and indeed accelerated during the pandemic. And a union wave within Amazon would allow us to shut down the logistical centers of the country. Historically, as we've learned today, unionization efforts have always gone hand in hand with racial justice. Rafa views the current unionization efforts at Amazon in Alabama as an extension of this legacy and stands in solidarity along with organizations around the country with workers voting to unionize. We salute these workers because they are not only standing up for themselves, but for all workers who are oppressed and exploited. This unionization vote and organizing effort will not only boost and uplift the majority Black women, Amazon warehouses, predominantly Black workers in Bessemer, but also serve as a precedent for other workplaces in America to fight for better conditions and fair and just labor rights for all. Solidarity from Rank and File Action.
Oida, thank you. Thank you for your words and your solidarity from Rafa. We are going to go over some next steps really quickly before we open up for discussion. And just a quick reminder that the discussion isn't going to be live streamed. Also, I just want to take a moment to bring us back to our focus really quickly after all of our amazing solidarity speakers and our panelists, that this is a fight that is about racial and social justice. This is a struggle for predominantly Black and brown women who are demanding respect and dignity in their workplace. That this struggle is part of a larger problem and class struggle within our nation, but also thinking about the globalization of Amazon and the exploitation of workers who are Black and brown and Indigenous folks. And this is so important to be discussing and talking about and thinking about and trying to change. So just reframing us and bringing us back to our mission of solidarity with the Amazon Union. I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, who's going to go over some next steps.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steph, and thank you everyone for those incredibly powerful solidarity statements. I mean, it's clear that people all over this country and all over the world stand with the workers in Bessemer trying to organize their union, and it speaks to all of us of our desire to both fight back against the richest man in the world and his company, but for all of us to fight back against and for our own dignity and rights in our own workplaces and across this entire country. And as Steph said, for racial justice and social justice, which are absolutely central to this fight. So before we go into discussion, we wanted to give people a couple of quick next steps, both about what's going on with Bessemer, but also to stay in touch, to do further, talk about doing further solidarity work. So Jason and AC both mentioned, or I think actually Jason did, social media support. People can send solidarity pictures or videos to directly to this email address, bamamazon.community@gmail.com. And I know that the DSA Birmingham chapter is, as they talked about, are involved in community with other groups in the community to get these to the workers, to let them know that we stand with them. There is also a National Day of Action that's been called on March 20th, a National Day of Solidarity. There's a link there to the Southern Workers Assembly, which was mentioned earlier during the panel. My union, National Nurses United, is a member of that assembly. And so I know that they are, along with others around the country, calling for rallies and actions wherever we can do them, at Amazon facilities, Whole Foods, wherever people are, to try to show solidarity with the Amazon workers. So please check out the link, and we will be getting to some announcements about further actions across the country once we're done with discussion. And then finally, to stay in touch, there was a huge group of, very extensive group of endorsers who signed on to this event, which we are overwhelmed by. It's really amazing. I think there would have been more, and it feels this is a time when coming in the pandemic and with the economic crisis, the fight against racism that is central in this country, that working people and people who support us want to actually stay in contact with each other to build more panels like this, but also actions and talk about what it means to support each other in these struggles. So please take a look at the bit.ly, which is a form. We'll be sending these slides back out to everyone who participated, but please take a look at the form to stay in touch, to build more solidarity. And there's also an email there, solidaritynetworkforlabor@gmail.com. And we're just at the beginning stages of trying to, bring people together to do these kinds of things more often, to support struggles like those in Bessemer. So with that, we can go into the discussion. So if